peaceful pasture, hiding a deadly secret. The staff in his hand is no longer for herding sheep, it is for tearing down the dark forces. As legions of beasts surge like a tidal wave, the reclusive shepherd finally unleashes his forbidden art. Touch my flock, and taste the abyss.
The boy just casually swung his whip. In an instant, he one-shot the brutal demon beast. Even the professional mercenary group beside him was utterly shocked, because when I was 10 years old, I accidentally discovered this special power hidden within my body. Young and clueless as I was, I excitedly told my mom about it back then. Not only could I make wood float in midair, I could even summon powerful fire elements. But who knew after hearing my description, she actually put on a rare, terrifying expression. That was the first time I saw her get angry. And it was also the last. Once her anger gradually subsided, she called me over to talk about something. She asked if I was willing to live with her forever. If I was, I had to promise her one thing. From today on, never use this ability again. And never let outsiders know it exists. When I asked why, full of confusion, Mom asked me back. Still remember the past of those nobles and knights? I said of course I hadn't forgotten. Then she began to tell me. Whether noble or knight, anyone born with such special abilities would be called a wizard by the world. But nobles and knights are fundamentally different. Nobles are descendants of the sacred Freya race. They came to this world to bring, while knights are those whose bloodline mixed with humans' noble offspring. That's why, even among wizards, they still make a clear distinction between nobles and knights. So now I have to make you understand why. You must never reveal this ability, because the power flowing through you is your father's knight power. Outside this town, there are many nobles with ulterior motives lurking. They see knights as servants they can order around at will. So you must remember, never let anyone know you are a wizard. You can promise me that, right? From that day on, a full 8 years went by. I always kept my promise to my mom. But then one day, a young man from the village went to report to an elder, saying that recently, on the outskirts of the village, traces of a monster had appeared. The monster was covered in a layer of pitch-black shadow. Its size was like a panther as big as a house. This made the villagers all terrified. But the village chief had already left for the city to hire a wizard. Once the chief brought back a wizard, they would surely be able to subdue that beast. Hearing this, the elder warned them. You should all be extra careful yourselves. Without a wizard present, trying to kill the monster is nearly hopeless. The young man then replied, I've already informed the villagers, but I haven't had a chance to tell him yet. The elder was a bit puzzled when he heard this. Who exactly was this him the young man was talking about? The young man immediately explained to the old man. Then the young man explained to the old man. It was the one who lived in the West Serral mountain range. The shepherd named Turan. At that very moment, I was lazily lying on the green slope, staring blankly at the pale blue sky. Day after day, the same scenery. Day after day, a life with no waves. If I kept on living like this any longer, I was afraid I'd even forget how to speak. Just as I was worrying about that, a voice suddenly came over. Poor little thing, the sun hasn't even set yet. And you're already lazing around here? Once I saw clearly who it was, I told him to quickly get out of the way. Don't block my sunlight. He angrily scolded me for being so rude. Could I still be holding a grudge about that thing from back then? That thing back then. This made me retort. Were you referring to when my mother passed away, and you secretly tried to make the flock public property? Hearing this, he gave a dry cough. A couple of times, but didn't argue. So I continued on. If that's what you're referring to, then you're right. But I'm not that magnanimous to share the inheritance my mother left me and offer it to others. Besides, our relationship hasn't gotten close enough to exchange pleasantries. So what advice do you have for coming here? If you have something to say, say it, and then leave. These words enraged him so much he nearly screamed at me. But my icy stare forcibly choked him back. So he averted his eyes. deliberately avoiding my gaze. He told me a monster had appeared near the village. A leopard said to be as big as a house. Lop saw it. After hearing this, my face showed no fear. I just reached out and patted the lamb beside me, and calmly said, "This really is a nuisance." Seeing me like this, he couldn't help but find it strange. "How come you're not scared at all? In this area, the most likely target of that thing is you. I really don't know where you get such courage. Anyway, enough small talk. The village chief has gone to town to fetch a wizard. You better be more careful yourself. I came specially to warn you because I'm worried about you." As soon as he finished speaking, I said he was way too hypocritical. Why not just say outright that you're worried about the flock? Why pretend to be concerned about me? But since you've already said what you needed to, then you might as well leave now. The stench coming out of your mouth is really foul. That remark made the old man furious. He immediately turned around and went back along the mountain path he came from. In this world, the only ones that can be called monsters are those beasts that possess strange powers and magical arts. If there are wizards among humans, then there are monsters among beasts. A wizard actually came for a mere monster, all the way to this remote village. It seems I'll finally get to see the wizard's skills with my own eyes. But if it's the village chief who invited them, then they might not have anything extraordinary about them, even if they are masters. But I still want to see with my own eyes what they really look like. And just then, my nose suddenly caught a trace of something unusual. The scent was the smell of blood. So I followed that smell and traced it to its source. When I reached the source of the smell, I found that the old man who spoke to me earlier had already died. He came specially to warn me to be careful, but ended up being killed first. Judging by the scene, this wasn't the work of an ordinary beast. It must have been the monster he mentioned earlier. Just then, I suddenly sensed movement around me. As the sounds drew closer, I saw exactly what the old man had described, a vicious monster as large as a house. Back at home, a child tugged at his father and asked, "Can the adults really not defeat that monster?" His father told him, "That's right. If ordinary folks like us rush in recklessly, we probably won't even find our bones." Hearing this, the child worriedly asked his father, "What will happen to our village now?" The father gently comforted him, saying not to worry. The village chief will surely bring back a wizard. Wizards can subdue those monsters. But the child, still confused, asked him, "Can a wizard definitely defeat that monster?" The father said, "Of course. They are supernatural beings born with great magical power. Just one word is enough to make those terrifying monsters disappear." At that moment, I was quietly staring at the raging demon beast before me. Then I whispered a single word. In an instant, the brutal demon beast suddenly retreated several meters. Because in that moment, it sensed from me a dangerous scent of a predator. Seeing it like this, I couldn't help muttering, "Has it already stopped working?" Then it once again bared its claws. It lunged at me. Seeing this, I shouted, "Stop!" The ferocious demon beast was once again startled by my voice and stumbled back several meters. At this rate, it really doesn't work anymore. Otherwise, why couldn't it even stop when commanded? Just then, that raging demon beast raised its claws with immense force and slammed down at me. The golden patterns on its cheeks made its face even more menacing. Before its claws fell, I had already dodged and leaped to another spot. Seeing it so ferocious, I sighed softly. 7. If that's the case, then I must use a method fitting for a shepherd. The demon beast saw my move and immediately assumed a stance ready to attack. Meanwhile, I, facing the stone held in my left hand, uttered a single word to that stone. Change 1. Then I tightly wrapped it with the long whip in my right hand. At the same time, my eyes also suddenly emitted golden light. Then I swung the long whip in my hand and stepped forward at the same time while uttering another word. Change fast. The moment the whip swung out, the stone just now shot out like a cannonball. It flew out and swept towards that fierce demon beast with a loud bang. The stone flew straight past the demon beast's ear, sending snow flying everywhere. This enraged it instantly. It bared all its claws and fangs and lunged at me. But what I tried to aim at was not its ear, but its head. The next second, the stone pierced straight through its head. Looking at the demon beast now dead on the ground, I muttered to myself, "This is the first time I've used this skill on a monster. But now, which valley should I throw you into? Or is there a better way?" I couldn't help complaining. 0000. Those bastards in the village really give me no peace. After dealing with this trouble, I returned to my dwelling in the mountains. Because I once made a promise to my mother. I never revealed my identity as a wizard to anyone, nor did I ever use this power in front of others. Just as I was about to lie down to rest, my door was shaken by a rapid knocking. Turan, 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 Turan. The person pounded on the door while shouting my name at the top of their lungs. I pulled the door open and saw a group of villagers glaring at me furiously. Turns out, they came to interrogate me about the earlier old man who brought me the message. I yawned and with a nonchalant expression, I asked them back. With this show of force, are you trying to say that I killed Rabus? But before my words even finished, the sturdy man at the front grabbed me by the collar and glared at me fiercely. That's right, you damn bastard. You were cruel enough to do that to that innocent old man, and even threw his corpse to the monsters. Upon hearing this, I was silent for a while. Then I said, I know why you are so determined to frame me. You are afraid and don't dare to fight those monsters. Each of you chose to retreat. That's why the village's oldest elders suffered. So you, afraid of being called cowards, planned to shift the blame onto me. Hearing this, the man became even more furious. He raised his fist to give me a beating, but I lightly dodged his incoming punch. For me, magic is the most convenient way to solve problems. Because whenever I truly and strongly desire something, it will become reality at the cost of mana. As I softly said the word fall, among the crowd, someone stumbled and fell. Actually, to deal with these people, I didn't need any fire spells or fierce killing moves. It was enough to use some inconspicuous power. This way I could ensure their lives were safe, and with absolute superiority, keep them completely subdued. And this is exactly how for the past 8 years, I have hidden my wizard identity. Looking at the mess of fallen bodies before me, I let out a long sigh. I said, you should use this energy for Bloss's funeral. Then I turned to ask the other group of women beside me, are you here to fight too? Hearing this, they quickly and frantically explained that was not the case. They just wanted to come check on me. After hearing this, I was silent for a moment. Then I told them to take all these idiots back. After getting rid of these troubles, I prepared to take off my clothes and lie down to rest. I knew all too well that this would cause another uproar in the village, because they will definitely, when doing business with me, when they try to haggle and give me a hard time. But that's not a big deal. I just need to make them offer a fair price, and that'll do. Just at that moment, a sound snapped me back to reality. I couldn't help muttering under my breath. Have those guys lost their minds? Coming back so soon? Then I yanked the door open, planning to give them a piece of my mind. But to my complete surprise, the face before me was that of a middle-aged man. Seeing this, I asked him who he was. He paused for a moment before speaking. Sorry to disturb you. I was hoping you could help me out along the way. But given the situation, it seems inappropriate now, after learning he was a wandering drifter. I couldn't help but fall silent for a moment. Then I offered him an apology, saying I had just chased away some uninvited guests and thought they had come back. These polite pleasantries were all taught to me by my mother, who guided me carefully. I wasn't sure how well I was doing, because in that pitiful village, I had never spoken properly to anyone, so it made me feel a bit awkward. Looking at his outfit, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. A wanderer carrying a long sword. How did he end up in such a remote town? Then I asked him, are you? Looking for a place to rest. The moment I finished speaking, I heard a rumbling sound from his stomach. That made me sigh involuntarily. Helplessly, I opened the door and let him in. After preparing some food for him, I said my household wasn't well off, so I didn't have anything decent to offer. He was stuffing food into his mouth, while repeatedly praising that this was already a feast. Then he asked me, "Have you really never seen anyone from outside the village since you were a child?" Hearing this, I replied, "Yes. I grew up right here on this mountain. 00. I've always been a shepherd, and this town rarely gets visitors from outside." This made him look up at me. He thought I was quite interesting, because for someone who grew up here, a native shepherd, my manners were surprisingly polite. This made him praise my parents, saying they must have raised me well. I said I learned all of this from my mother, but she passed away a few years ago. Upon hearing this, the man's face showed regret. He made a prayer gesture, saying, "To have raised a son as outstanding as you. Surely, she must be feeling comforted in heaven." After that, he expressed his gratitude to me once more. I said that I was just living the way my mother taught me. Nothing more than that. Then, a bit curious, I asked him, "Why would you travel such a long way to come to a remote mountain village town like this?" He told me someone had asked him to help with a favor. They wanted him to deal with a monster that looked like a leopard. Hearing this, I was stunned on the spot. Then I asked him, "You must be the wizard the village chief mentioned, right?" He admitted it without any hesitation. "That's right, I am that wizard. May I ask you a question now?" I agreed to his request without much delay. So he began to ask. The monster he sensed should be in this area, but he hadn't found any trace of it. And what puzzled him even more was that I clearly knew about the village chief and the monster. Yet I stayed so calm. I never even thought about running away. If that monster planned to attack humans, you would be the first one it targeted. Aren't you afraid at all? For a shepherd who has never left this small town, your behavior is just too unusual and too bold. So who exactly are you? Could you also be a wizard? His question made me remember the times when my mother was still alive. Back then, I asked my mother why I couldn't let anyone know I was a wizard. And my mother told me, "It's all because of those vicious nobles. If you compare nobles to shepherds like us, then knights are like the dogs raised by the shepherds. Then the knight is like a dog raised by the shepherd. But when push comes to shove, they will choose to sell you off or sacrifice you. So your mother doesn't want you to live that kind of life. Turan, are you willing to keep living like this with your mother? If you are, then you must remember this one thing. Never let anyone know you are a wizard. Especially, don't let other wizards find out. Especially, we can't let other wizards notice. They will tear us apart and turn you into a sheepdog for them to control. When they no longer need you, they'll kick you away. To avoid being recognized as a wizard. To avoid being recognized as a wizard." At that moment, the man spoke again. "Why aren't you talking? Could it be that the thing I mentioned earlier, could it be the one I just opened? Was that joke too much?" After saying that, the man looked a bit awkward. He scratched the back of his head. This made me silent for a moment. I then apologized to him, saying I really don't have any sense of humor. He shook his head repeatedly upon hearing this, saying he should be the one apologizing. "I'm truly sorry. I just now made such an excessive joke at your expense." At that moment, a hint of a smile appeared on my face. I said this was the first time I'd heard a wizard tell a joke. So for a moment, I couldn't snap out of it. But he said my reaction was just too amusing. He couldn't help wanting to tease me a little. Guess it was a bit overboard. After saying that, he reached out his hand toward me, saying he had been here this long, yet hadn't properly introduced himself. "Pleased to meet you. I'm Kane, a wanderer." Then I reached out and grasped his hand. I said my name is Turan, a shepherd, just turned 18 this year. After hearing my age, he told me he was already 75. Hearing this, I couldn't help but ask, "You don't look that old at all." He said wizards live longer than ordinary people, and also age slower. Then I asked him why he became a wandering wizard. He replied, "After serving the Arabian family For a full 60 years, he chose to resign. He wanted to live a wandering life in his old age. A life of traveling everywhere. And so, we shared some of our respective pasts. Since coming into this world, this was the first time I talked so happily with someone. Time flew by, and it was already evening. Kane stood up, indicating it was time for him to leave. Then he reached out and placed a silver coin on the table. He told me this was an Arabian silver coin, one of the purest silver coins. Using this to pay for the meal should be more than enough. Seeing this, I also stood up, thanked him. May your hunting trip be smooth sailing. After he walked to the door, he turned back and told me. He said he'd probably stay around here for a day or two, so he might be shameless enough to come back for a few more meals. Then I yelled out, "Round up." Immediately, the sheep around raised their heads in unison and gathered toward me. At that moment, I was still immersed in yesterday. I was still basking in the joy of that conversation. That was the first time I had ever seen a real wizard, and also the first time I had talked so freely with someone. His words always carried a sense of ease and humor. His refined speech was far superior to anything the adults in the village could offer, and during these few days of casual chats, I increasingly felt that he was really a decent person. I had always believed that. Knights are at best nothing more than those arrogant nobles. Trained by those arrogant nobles. Just hounds of HH. This left me at a loss for how to bring it up with him. In truth, there were no longer any monsters on Mount Cicero. Meanwhile, Kane was now following Xiu Fong, the monster's trail as he searched. But what puzzled him was that there were clear signs of a fierce fight in this area. Yet he couldn't detect even a trace of presence. Could that beast have already been hunted down? Then who had done it? Or maybe the village chief had commissioned another wizard besides me. Duo who had a male wizard other than me. Thinking this, he felt a bit more at ease. Because he didn't care who had killed the monster. As long as this land was restored to peace, that was what mattered most. But just then, he suddenly sensed something. He twisted his body and looked behind him. A sharp claw suddenly came into his sight. And the owner of that claw was a hideous monster. Its skull had a huge gash. And from that gap protruded many jagged fangs. This left Kane puzzled. The vengeful spirit left by a monster. What kind of bastard had done such a thing? Before he could recover from his shock, the monster's claws came crashing down towards him, stabbing fiercely at him. With a dull thud. Xi Jinping's dull thud. All broke with a dull bang. It struck solidly the spot where Kane had been standing. Kane thought to himself, why did the wizard who hunted the monster, after finishing, not absorb or dispel the magical power inside the monster's body? Normally, any wizard who hunts monsters would know this trick. But why did he deliberately let the corpse become a vengeful spirit? Or maybe he was just a novice knight, completely unaware that if he didn't absorb the magic in the corpse, it would attract vengeful spirits. Perhaps they had some other plan. But it's too late for words. Right now, I have to destroy this thing. As he said that, a light appeared in Kane's palm, forming a golden light sword. Then with a whoosh, it shot toward the monster. But unexpectedly, the golden sword, upon hitting the monster's body, instantly shattered into pieces. This time, Kane was truly startled. His own spell had actually failed. Could it be that the monster's magical power far exceeded his? The next moment, in an instant beneath the stage, that monster, alive from Kane. The neighboring monster unexpectedly came alive from Kai. Disappeared from right under his nose. He scanned the surroundings restlessly, wondering where that thing had slipped off to. Just then, bubbles gurgled from the shadow beneath Kane's feet. A string of bubbles emerged. But right after that, a ferocious claw from him reached out from beneath his own shadow. Just as the claw was about to strike him, Kane finally came to his senses just in time. Seeing the wound on his arm, he was horrified. This was no longer an ordinary level that a knight could handle. At the very least, a lower noble would have some chance of winning. But he never expected to be in such a remote mountain ditch, to encounter such a troublesome monster. Life is really full of surprises and unexpected joys. Then he lowered his head slightly. In his heart, he vowed, I will not die here so pathetically. Even if I am to end here, I will definitely take you down with me. Then he gathered all the magical power in his body and concentrated it into his palm, waiting for the moment the monster lunged to directly strike its vital point. But just at that same moment when the monster showed its claws, he was also preparing to unleash his strongest blow. At that critical, hair-trigger moment, a blue flash suddenly streaked through the depths of the forest. Following that, it directly pierced through the monster's head. Cain, eyes wide, watched this scene and was stunned beyond words. That ferocious monster just now, 30, had been taken care of just like that. At that moment, a voice drifted into his ear. Are you okay? After he saw that the person coming was me, he smiled and said, the shepherd is actually a wizard. This joke is really scary. So, Turan, are you really a wizard? Then I, while coiling my whip, acknowledged this matter. He couldn't help wondering why I hadn't made it clear to him earlier, seeing that I remained silent. So he changed the subject and said, then I'll ask you something else. Why did you save me just now? You could have just turned and walked away, pretended you saw nothing. I mumbled something under my breath, probably out of a bit of kindness, thinking back to my earlier conversation with him. Back then I had asked him, why go through all this trouble? With his skills, he could have easily made more money with less effort. Why take on the village chief's monster hunting job? He laughed and said, those people are all poor souls, stuck in such a remote corner. Not even a decent shelter. How could anyone not feel pity? After hearing this, I said, this doesn't fall on you, does it? But he said, wizards are born inheriting the power of the gods. Therefore, it's only right to protect those defenseless villagers. Although, not all wizards in the world think like he does. But he believes that in one's life, one should always have their own way of living. As he spoke, the monster that had collapsed on the ground suddenly lunged at us again. After dodging that attack, he told me to listen carefully. This monster is not something you or I can match right now. Unless a noble takes it on personally, there's no way to contend with this thing. He told me to inform the village chief to evacuate everyone immediately. He would stay behind to hold off the monster, even though he knew his words were a bit boastful and didn't know how long he could last. He was still determined to fight on. At that moment, I spoke up and said, it's fine. With that, I activated the magic power within me. He was shocked to see me do this. Could it be that my earlier attack wasn't even my full strength? A young knight dwelling in the wild could single-handedly hunt something even nobles have to ready themselves for, that even nobles have to be fully alert to face. That was what the old knight Cain was thinking at that moment, because what he was seeing with his own eyes was no country boy bluffing, nor a young knight fleeing from nobles. Young knight showing off and being aggressive. The sight before him right now was the beginning of a story that could overturn the entire wizard world. And so, the scattered stones on the ground, all under my magic, slowly floated into the air under my control. This made me eager to find out just how deep my own abilities were. Cain, standing by, didn't waste a moment, and immediately stated that he wouldn't let me fight alone, because no matter how astonishing my talent was, that thing was a top-tier troublesome opponent. So we had to join forces to handle it. But then a loud bang sounded. Only then did he realize that not only was he unable to help, but would only get in the way. Because when facing that attack just now, Cain, knowing he couldn't help at all, had a thought in his heart. That was to let my talent shine at this moment. As I dodged the vengeful spirit's attacks, he shouted at the top of his lungs. A vengeful spirit can't be killed by physical attacks alone. That made me ask him what method I should use. He said I had to use fire or lightning. The moment he finished speaking, I conjured a burst of flames around the vengeful spirit. But that attack didn't even cause the slightest ripple. Then I said this move wouldn't work at all. By then, he also understood. I was someone who didn't even know the most basic of a wizard. Common sense of a wizard. That made Cain suddenly think of something. Could it be that he himself had killed that monster and then left this vengeful spirit? If that was the case, it meant Tehran had never absorbed any magic power since birth. Realizing this, he shouted to me, "Don't attack yet. Gather the flames and then release them all at once." Hearing that, in the blink of an eye, in my palm, I condensed a small fireball. Then I raised my hand high, pointing to the sky. Immediately, that small fireball spun violently with a whoosh. Then I took a step forward with my left foot, and with my right hand, I hurled the fireball toward the monster. A loud bang sounded, and the monster's whole body burst into a massive blaze. Seeing this from not far away, Cain witnessed this scene. I had to continuously pour magic power into it, burning every inch of this vengeful spirit completely to ashes. Hearing that, I did as he said. I let the flames burn without stopping. Seeing this, Cain let out a long breath. Seeing this scene, Cain finally let out a long breath. That vengeful spirit, which required at least noble-level strength, that one must at least have noble-level strength to contend, was actually taken down like that, and by a shepherd boy from a remote mountain village, the kingdom. Then he urgently urged me, "If you don't want to run into a vengeful spirit again, hurry up and absorb all its magic power." Hearing that, I asked him how I should do it. He told me to first stand before the monster's remains, and then in my mind picture the sensation of drawing that thing into my body. As I slowly closed my eyes, the image in my mind appeared. From above the monster's remains gently rose a layer of emerald green light. Those rays were like gossamer threads. They gathered toward my palm. At the moment I opened my eyes, I felt that all the bones and flesh in my body were filled with a strange power. Cain, who was behind me, spoke at this moment. "Don't you feel a sense of physical comfort? If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never believe it. That this is your first time absorbing magic. Although after the first awakening, magic power will with age gradually increase and improve. But the fastest way to improve is hunting monsters and converting their magic into your own use." So this also made Cain find it very baffling that I could actually, without ever having absorbed any magic power, control such a powerful spell. This made him feel that my talent and potential were truly extraordinary. Then he called out my name, Tehran. "I apologize for my earlier disrespect toward you. May I ask which family you come from?" The word family left me puzzled. But even so, I still reminded him, "Cain, you should tend to the wound on your arm first." After my reminder, he then remembered that his arm was still gushing blood. After returning to the lodging, I dressed his wound for him. He squinted in comfort. He really couldn't understand how someone as noble as me would condescend to do this for him. Hearing this, I spoke helplessly. "I've told you many times, I am not a noble person at all. I am just a person who can't even figure out who my own father is, just a shepherd boy. So please stop saying that." Seeing me staring straight at him, he then unhurriedly agreed. But he still couldn't understand why a wizard as powerful as me would insist on being a shepherd. Of course, he didn't mean to look down on me. He just felt that this occupation for someone like me was not very suitable. I told him this was my mother's dying wish. Mom made me do it, until she took her last breath. That left him stunned. He couldn't understand why my mom would leave such a wish. Then I used the very words my mom taught me back then. I explained it to him. After hearing that, he said my mom's decision was very wise. That actually surprised me, because I thought he would say, "This is nothing but unnecessary protection." But he shook his head and said it wasn't like that at all. He spoke to me. "Wizards possess formidable power, but that power inevitably invites conflict and disaster. About 20-some years ago, a brutal war broke out among several noble houses. The Arabian family I served was among them. They went to war with the Zahar family. That battle caused countless lives to be lost for nothing. Back then, out of over 3,000 Arabian knights who joined the fray, more than 900 fell on the battlefield. What made it even more heartbreaking, all the people I was close with were also among those 900. My old comrades always said. After the war, they'd open a laundry shop together. And my mentor always scolded me, saying I still had many skills I hadn't mastered. And my beloved wife and children, they were all slaughtered by the Zahar family. In the end, only I was left alive, all alone. So in a way, your mom's decision back then was right. A knight's life might be lost more easily than an ordinary person's. But there was one thing she got wrong, and that's your natural talent. Even though, given my current state, saying this sounds a bit like boasting. But in truth, I was actually a pretty impressive knight. However, compared to you, who has never absorbed even a bit of magical power, I don't even count as a scrap. Now you should understand just how extraordinary your talent really is. At the very least, it's on the level of a noble's constitution. And even among them, your talent is considered top-notch. That secretly surprised me. Could it be that my father is not a knight? Hearing this, Cain slowly stood up. On very rare occasions, a noble's bloodline can produce a child even weaker than a knight. A knight's bloodline. Likewise, it might also produce offspring with noble potential. So from a certain perspective, I think you'd better leave this place. Go out to the world beyond the mountains and take a look. I pressed him for the reason. He said, our human race currently needs more nobles and knights, because humans have not yet fully subjugated this world completely. In the distant past, those offshoot races expelled by the gods still lurk in the shadows, eagerly waiting for a comeback. But these nobles of today only care about fighting among themselves. So because of this, in this current era, there's an urgent need for someone like you, a noble who is both powerful and compassionate, to step forward. Of course, more importantly, you surely don't want to just be a shepherd for the rest of your life, right? These words made me think in silence for a moment. Then I opened my mouth and asked him, what exactly can I gain down in the lowlands? He said it all depends on what you want in your heart. Wealth, fame, power, family, or friendship. All these are things you can't get by staying cooped up here. Don't you think so? You can wander and travel like I do, eliminating the monsters that plague the world. Or you can become an adventurer who is determined to explore the unknown. Or maybe you could be adopted by a noble house and pursue the path of power. Hearing him say this, I finally woke up as if from a dream. You though? Yeah, those things. Each one is better than staying here and herding sheep. It's much more interesting. Thank you for letting me, for the first time, feel genuine curiosity about the outside world. Hearing him say this, Cain immediately said that no matter which path I chose, he would fully support me. Then he asked me, what is your bloodline ability? Seeing my bewildered expression, he seemed to remember something. Then, somewhat apologetically, he said, I'm really sorry. I keep forgetting that you originally didn't know about these things. The so-called bloodline ability is a trait that nobles inherit from their ancient ancestor FRE. You people. Of course, whether one possesses a bloodline ability is also the yardstick used to distinguish nobles from knights. Having said that, he gathered a small flame in his palm. Then he asked me, when you cast magic, is there any spell that feels especially easy for you to use? Or maybe I had some extraordinary skill. When he asked that, I went through in my head the things he mentioned one by one. Then I told him I had a really sharp nose, and I was dead accurate when throwing stones. He said if my sense of smell was unusually keen, then it might be a bloodline ability. Martial arts like throwing. That was indeed one of the Arabian family's signature skills. But when you think about it, this skill wasn't really that rare. Then he pressed me for more details. But after I told him everything one by one, after telling him everything, but when I one by one, I noticed his expression turned extremely odd. So I asked him what was wrong. He said he had probably figured it out, which family my blood was closest to. Hearing that, I started pressing him. Then he told me it was a very remarkable family. They were called the Pursuers, or the Hunters, the Zahar family. It was the same family that once clashed with the Arabian family. His words immediately stunned me on the spot, because I never expected that the blood flowing in my veins was from the Zahar family, the family that had killed all of Cain's loved ones and old friends. This left me at a loss for what to say to him. Should I apologize? But those people were all blood relatives I'd never met. To me, they were practically strangers. Just then, he suddenly spoke up. Tehran, you don't need to look so troubled. You didn't personally take part in that battle. Although I understood his meaning very well, I still didn't know how to respond. Then he put on his usual smile, saying that this was the reality of adulthood. If we always think about an eye for an eye, then this conflict will never end. Immediately after, I asked him, for the matter of me wanting to leave the mountain, do you really have no reservations in your heart? Hearing this, he reached out and patted my shoulder, saying that if I really went down the mountain and chased power, then I probably couldn't avoid dealing with the Zahar family. After all, you carry such astonishing talent. But I trust your character, because you saved me, even if it meant revealing an identity you've hidden your whole life without hesitation. So I think that someone like you, if you joined the Zahar family and held a high position there, then perhaps you could prevent that when the terrible war breaks out again. Of course, you don't need to think too much about it. Ultimately, you still haven't decided to join the Zahar family. And at that moment, I said I had figured out some things. I want to try venturing down the mountain, but not immediately. But until the wound on your arm, Cain, is fully healed, then I'll leave. He said it was just a scratch, but he didn't refuse my kindness. Then I let him stay here for now. When the wound healed, we'd go down the mountain together. And from then on, Cain would teach me every day the fundamentals of magic. He said, if you want to use magic, you must have magic power. And magic power is the universal key to the door of magic. But this key comes in many forms. Whatever magic you want to cast, you need to match it with the corresponding magic power. Hearing this, I asked him further, and what about the criteria for matching? Then he explained to me in detail. The criteria for matching magic are mainly bloodline, affinity, and causality. The first, bloodline, is the lineage you're born with. This applies to most nobles who aren't knights. For instance, this wound on my arm. It's hard for you to heal, right? But for those of the Ravista bloodline from the south, even without training or practice, they can handle it with ease. That all comes from the power within their bloodline. After hearing that, I asked him again, then what about the second one, affinity? He stood up. He told me you can think of it as the degree of familiarity. And the last one, also the most important, is causality. Even I haven't fully understood it. If you set your mind on directly using magic power to take my life, what would happen? I guess probably on my forehead. A few light rings would appear, and then nothing. After hearing that, he placed his hand on the cup. He said this is precisely a sign of missing causality. When the desired outcome lacks a corresponding cause, or when the goal you want to achieve is too difficult, this sort of thing happens. This explained suddenly cleared things up for me. I told him, I think I now understand what causality is. If I want to take your life, rather than wasting magic power to wish you dead out of thin air, it's better to give a specific cause. For example, setting a fire to burn you completely. Right? Cain couldn't help but praise me. Since you can grasp the key to causality so quickly, this talent is really quite suitable. But to become a scholar, then I spoke again. I could go as I pleased. Manipulate ordinary birds and beasts. If I wanted to also control demon beasts, what conditions would I need to meet? So we chatted back and forth endlessly. I had no idea at all. Learning magic could be so exhausting. An outstanding wizard not only needed to know how to channel magical power, but also the principles behind it and its application. Thoroughly grasp its scenes as well. Thoroughly grasp its scenes as well. Then another thought popped into my head. So I went to ask Cain Zahar whether this bloodline also held some special techniques. Upon hearing this, he didn't hide anything. Told me their family's specialty was stealth and tracking, and told me I could try it right away. Then I closed my eyes and silently envisioned it in my mind. I must not let anyone see me. My own sounds and scent must not be detected by others. And thus, the figure of my entire body gradually faded away. Right then and there, I vanished without a trace from Cain's sight. Seeing this, Cain said, "You've done it. I can't see your shadow now." Then after a while, my figure slowly reappeared. Seeing this, he couldn't help but praise again. This skill is still so unsettling. In the years of that war, what the Arabian Knights feared most was this move. Even though it's truly formidable. You must remember this, it's not all powerful. So for now, let me teach you a few methods to refine your magical power. Hearing him say this, I asked, why would you go to the trouble of teaching so much knowledge to a wizard from a rival family? But he said that I had saved his life earlier and even healed his wounds. More importantly, he trusted my character. Not many days later, when the village chief learned that I planned to sell my sheep and leave this place, he was very surprised. He asked me why I didn't discuss it with them and just made the decision on my own. If I really did that, who would herd the sheep from now on? Hearing this, I told them to figure it out themselves and find another shepherd, a herding fire to seek again. Besides, I'm dealing with my own property. What business is it of yours? But come to think of it, I still hope you'll stick to a fair price and take these sheep away. Otherwise, I'll take them all, release them all, and then walk away. Of course, you could also go all over the mountains and fields and catch them back. But that would take a lot of effort. The village chief was like a mirror. I'm a man who says it and does it. If you really piss this guy off, you won't get any benefit at all. So he honestly took out the money. After this matter was settled, I planned to leave here with Cain. Along the way, I asked him, those villagers still owe you a commission, don't they? Do you want me to go to their door and collect it? But he said he never planned to accept it. What's more, the one who killed that demon beast wasn't me, but you. Let's part ways here. I'm sorry, I turned down your offer to travel together, because I prefer to travel alone. Hearing this, I looked at him and said, it's fine. I still need to thank you for your guidance. This made him smile slightly. He told me to take care on the road, and I told him to take care as well, hoping that one day we would meet again. And so, the boy's eyes followed Cain's, gradually receding back. It was only much later that he gradually realized why he had willingly respected that old knight so much. Although he had never lacked his mother's love since childhood, yet deep down in the boy's heart, he had always hoped for a father-like figure to come before him. A few days after parting with Cain, I traveled straight along the road and came to a barren, uninhabited Gobi desert. The air here was filled with fine sand, blocking the traveler's view completely. And just at that moment, I saw a group of merchants traveling between different villages. So I decided to approach them and ask those people for directions. After coming closer, I asked them how to get to the nearest city from here. Hearing this, the leader, an elderly man, told me, keep walking along the road they came from, and you'll reach a town called Mulei. After I got this information, I thanked them. But before I could take 2 steps, they called me back, saying I was just going to leave after getting info. Was I not thinking of giving something in return? As soon as those words landed, the people nearby drew their swords in unison. They wanted me to set down the bulging bundle on my back. This made me ask them in confusion, are you planning to rob me? Hearing this, the leader said, so what if we rob you? This is a desolate wilderness. A death or two is no big deal. So while we can still talk calmly, just take off your bundle. Don't wait until we kill you and strip you bare. That will only make it messier. Hearing this, my gaze turned cold. Then I remembered earlier when with Cain, the magical skills I had practiced. Then I smiled and said to them, "Are you offering yourselves as practice?" As soon as I said that, the crowd burst into laughter. Listen to what this lunatic just said, acting as if he's really a wizard. Just then, I gently raised my palm. The moment I whispered the word wind, those men's bodies suddenly flew into the air. Seeing this, I thought Cain's teachings really worked well. This saved a lot of magic power. Using just a tiny bit of magic, I could stir up such fierce winds. Next, I unscrewed the canteen lid, used magic to pull out the water, then magnified and condensed it several times. Immediately, several ice spikes formed around me. Those bandits were terrified at the sight. But before they could flee, the ice spikes pierced straight through their bodies. Just as I prepared to continue, the bandit leader begged for mercy and wanted to surrender. Said they didn't know I was a wizard. Wanted me to spare him. His words had barely finished when his accomplices gripped weapons and attacked me from behind. I slightly raised my right foot, then stomped hard on the ground. Immediately, several earth spikes shot up around, piercing their bodies clean through. This made the bandit leader's eyes full of shock. How is this possible? How did they die like that? Then I told him I had something to ask. Because of that one-sided fight, the bandit leader no longer had any thought of resistance. Kneeling, he said he would answer anything. After hearing that, I asked, "Why did you attack me for no reason? Did it never cross your minds? Among lone travelers, there could be a wizard like me?" He immediately said it was because I lowered my head. "Even though we spoke to you so harshly, you still bowed and thanked us. So we concluded you were just an ordinary person." For that, I thanked him again. I learned a lot of useful things from that. That made a spark of hope ignite in his heart. "So can you let me go?" But before he could finish, he saw the droplet of water gathering above his forehead. The reason I did that was all because Cain had advised me earlier. After I started this journey, I would encounter all kinds of people. But for bandits like pests, I must not show any mercy. A life spared out of momentary weakness might end up harming 10 or even 100 good people. So I didn't hesitate and finished him off. Then, I followed the trail their cart left and continued forward. The boy's heart was in turmoil because he had killed someone, though he did feel guilty. He couldn't just let those people go because Cain's warning kept echoing in his mind. A group that for a little gain would rob and kill without hesitation those pests. They could turn their blades on anyone anytime. The cart tracks in the desert gradually faded as weeds started to grow. Turan's troubled heart, when recalling Cain's teachings, slowly calmed down. Then I arrived in a whole new place. I couldn't hide my surprise. The town called Muriai that the bandit leader had mentioned was right here. Looking around at everything, I was like a country boy seeing a city for the first time. I curiously examined everything here, because this was the first time I had seen so many people gathered together. Besides why, these buildings looked completely different from the village once. The unfamiliar surroundings made me not know where to go next. Then I clearly remembered Cain's earlier words. He had told me, if I arrive somewhere I've never been and want to rest, find an inn. Whether it's a village or a town, there will always be an inn. So I turned to one side. I asked the fruit vendor for information. At first, the vendor politely asked what I wanted. But when he realized I wasn't here to buy, his attitude did a complete 180. He told me to go away if I wasn't buying. I was puzzled why he was so rude. Was there an unwritten rule in this city that I had to buy fruit before asking anything? So I pointed at the apples nearby and asked how much they cost. Z saw me pull out some coins. ZF, his tone then softened. Judging by your clothes, you look like you're from out of town. Z, anything you want to ask? Hearing that, I on one hand slipped a silver coin into his palm. Lu Shiju, on the other hand, asked him where to find an inn. He said go straight along the path behind the cloak shop. Then turn left. Then turn left. You'll see a house with a blue roof. That's the biggest inn in town. When I arrived at that inn, I met the clerk Lena. She smiled and greeted me. I asked her how much for one night. She clasped her hands together. Shirduo cheerfully told me 16 dubits. After knowing the price, I handed her the corresponding amount of coins. Then I asked her about any bounties nearby. Is it for hunting monsters specifically? The reason I asked was because I needed to hunt monsters. And earlier, Kane said taking bounties and hunting monsters could earn money. Seeing her silent, I pressed her further. But she said to me, "Sir, there's no such thing as a free lunch." So I slipped her a few more coins. Then she told me, to take bounties, go to City Hall. That's where official business is handled. And the clerks working there are all hired by the city lord. The sun has already set. That place is probably closed by now. So if you want to take a monster bounty, go to City Hall tomorrow. Then, Lena asked me in confusion, are you also a monster hunter? But I didn't know what she meant by monster hunter. Hearing this, she began to explain. She said that if an ordinary person could hunt down a monster, they could become a wizard just like that. So, are you also aiming to become a wizard? But these are just some deceptive rumors. Just then, a hand landed on my shoulder. That man said those rumors aren't false. The whole matter of becoming a wizard by killing monsters is a fact with no lies mixed in. He had seen it with his own eyes. This made Lena look at him with doubt. Midden, you're still alive? Hearing this, Midden started speaking. Didn't I tell you? Before becoming a wizard, I won't die. At this, I brushed his hand off my shoulder. Then I asked him, can an ordinary person really become a wizard by killing a monster? He told me. If a wizard wants to become stronger, they absolutely must kill monsters. If an ordinary person can kill a monster, they can also become a wizard. The four of us are currently hunting monsters, all to become powerful wizards. This made me ask him, has anyone actually done it yet? He said, how could it be? In this city, only the Lord and his 3 subordinates are wizards. Also, you just said you want to kill monsters? You're not planning to rely on that gear you're wearing, are you? That's too shabby. To that, I didn't argue. It was indeed as he said. The only thing I had was a slingshot. It could only shoot pebbles the size of eggs. But he still extended an invitation to me. He said their team happened to need someone who uses a bow, but I flatly refused him, because I had no reason to team up with them. After lying down on the bed, I went over the entire day in my head, reviewing everything that happened. The world outside is really chaotic. Until now, I still can't believe I actually left the village. This made me quite curious about the days ahead. Just as I was thinking, I heard a knock on the door from outside. I sat up from the bed. I called out, who is it? Before parting with Kane, even inside an inn. Because the city is not necessarily LHO, inside the city is not necessarily a completely safe place. So he repeatedly warned me. I must be extra careful in my actions. This means I can't afford to be careless at all. My left hand quietly gathered magical power. My right hand prepared to open the door. The moment the door opened, I saw the visitor was Lena, whom I had met during the day. She asked if I had fallen asleep. She said she was worried the room might be cold. She thought about warming me up. This made me look puzzled and ask her, what exactly do you mean by that? But she told me she meant exactly what she said. Just give her a small amount of money, and she would do anything I wanted. But I said I didn't really want anything. Hearing this, she told me to stop pretending. Just from my expression, she understood everything. But when she lifted her eyes to look at me, she found me as calm as a meditating monk. This left her stunned for a moment. Yes, this too was Kane's advice. He had told me earlier that when I encountered that kind of woman in an inn, I must always stay vigilant. Because that type of person, 9 out of 10 have some kind of problem. Although a wizard's body is tough enough, This sort of thing is nothing to a wizard. But once you get infected, when later you're with other girls, it could easily be passed on. So he repeatedly warned me never to let a momentary impulse drive me to do something I'd regret. This situation made me feel that living in a big city is really not easy. The fruit stall owner earlier, and now Lena, are all like this. I really hadn't expected that. Even a bit of news and a few casual words. Everything is clearly marked with a price. This place is truly cold and chilling. Just at that moment, I keenly caught some sounds coming from the stairwell. A person was asking Midden, who walked ahead, "Why did you earlier think to bring that kid along? Honestly, that kid doesn't seem like he can help much." Then someone nearby chimed in, "Yeah, that kid is even quite cocky. Maybe we can use him as bait to lure monsters." But Midden said he reminded him of himself when he was young. So, when he heard that guy wanted to use that sort of thing to hunt monsters, I felt a bit uneasy.